Good evening. I call to order this November 16th meeting of the Winston-Salem City Council. Pursuant to the policies and procedures adopted by the City Council regarding virtual meetings, I've determined that it is not practical or feasible for us to meet together tonight physically. And due to the stay-at-home order and the stay safe order, the City Council is permitted performing virtually. All council members will vote virtually and by roll call vote. I'll recognize council members and ask for their vote as items come up. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Larson.
Present.
Councilmember Clark.
I'm here.
Councilmember Bessie.
Here.
Councilmember Scipio.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor. Councilmember McIntosh.
Here.
Councilmember Parman.
Here.
Thank you very much. I wanted to also recognize tonight we have on the call members of the Youth Advisory Council from our Human Relations Department and program. We welcome you to the meeting tonight, and we also thank you for service on the Youth Advisory Committee. You make a great input to the policies and procedures that the Mayor and City Council consider from time to time. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the meeting tonight. Would you please join the City Council and me in a moment of silence? Thank you very much. Tonight's agenda, the City Council is comprised of two parts, the consent agenda and the general agenda. And it's always the practice of this council to take the consent agenda as the first order of business. There'll be no discussion of the items on the consent agenda unless a council member requests that an item be removed, which it will be, and considered individually. Items not removed from the consent agenda will be enacted with one motion. The meeting is being televised live tonight on TV 13. And it will be replayed on Tuesday at 9 a.m. and again Wednesday at 9 p.m. Of course, copies of our agenda, as well as videos of previous meetings, are always available to the public at our city's website, and just click on the Watch Meetings Online option. Council members, I'd like to pull item C3. And are there any other items council members would like to pull? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval. Second.
Councilmember McIntosh moves approval, second by Councilmember Clark. We'll move to, are there any in discussion? I don't think it's going to be any. We'll go to the roll call. Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Bessie.
Yes.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Okay.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Aye.
And Councilmember Parman.
Aye.
Thank you. Item C3, please.
Item C3, consideration of items regarding financial assistance for proposed multifamily housing development recommended by Finance Committee to Development, Housing, and General Government Committees.
Councilmembers, Mayor Pro Tem Adams and I both serve on the Whitaker Park Development Authority, and we would like for the city attorney to make a statement regarding any potential conflict of interest before we actually vote on this. So I recognize Councilor Parman. Carmen.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Yes, I have examined the mayor's membership as well as that membership of Mayor Pro Tem Adams on the Whitaker Park Development Authority Board. I looked at the appropriate statute and determined that it is okay, permissible for both Mayor Pro Tem Adams to vote and, of course, the mayor to vote in the event of a tie. It is not a conflict for either one of them to vote.
Thank you, Attorney. I would then therefore entertain a motion to approve item C3.
Approval.
Second.
Thank you. Councilmember Clark moved approval. I think seconded by Councilmember Scipio. Any discussion? Councilmember Bessie.
Yeah, you know, I know the votes are here to pass this in its present form, and I wouldn't have pulled it off consent, but it having been pulled off consent, I have to restate my concern that I expressed during finance. I think this is a good project. I think it's an economic development project. I don't think it's a good use of $1 million of our limited housing assistance fund to be the source of assistance for the project. We're getting a total of 16 units at to the average family, not particularly affordable costs out of it. I think it would have been far better for us to look to our economic development bonds for a funding source here. So I'll have to vote no.
Thank you. All right, we will then go to the roll call. Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Bessie.
No.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yay.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Aye.
And Councilmember Parman.
Aye.
And the motion passes 7-1 with Councilmember Bessie voting no. Thank you very much. Council will now move to the general agenda, which is comprised of the following: an item confirming the assessment role for demolition of housing units that were unfit for human habitation, as well as the public comment period. The assessment role is listed as a public hearing, and when the public hearing is called, persons will be given an opportunity to speak virtually. If no one wishes to speak, I'll close the public hearing and the council will consider the item. I also would say that written comments will be accepted on the public hearing item until 7 p.m. tomorrow, November 17th, by sending written comments to the city clerk's office at P.O. Box 2511 27102, or by email to sandrark@cityofws.org. The written comments, if any, will be afforded to the mayor and members of the city council. And if desired, the appropriate council member, based on the written comments, can make a request that an item be reconsidered at a subsequent meeting. The public comment period is a time set for citizens to voice their concerns or issues that are germane to city government. When the virtual comment period is called, each speaker will be given 3 minutes to speak, and the public comment period total will be limited to 30 minutes. Ms. Keeney, would you please read the first item?
Item G1, public hearing on resolution confirming assessment role for demolition of housing unfit for human habitation, recommended by Finance Committee.
Thank you. I'm not aware that we have anyone waiting to speak on this item. So therefore, I'll close the public hearing. And this did come from the General Government Housing Committee as well as the Finance Committee. I actually don't care for Finance. I recognize Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think it would be very helpful for the staff to give a definition of what this means when we do this assessment role, the why and the what.
Yeah, I think it's just a financial matter. So Chief Financial Officer Saunders, would that be appropriate for you to comment on?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, and members of City Council. The attached is an assessment roll for council to approve, and this is basically a billing of the demolition cost. City Council would have approved demolition of various housings, which is attached in Exhibit A, over a period of time, and once those houses have been demolished and the cost have been accumulated, those bills or that expense is sent to the Revenue Collections Division to actually bill the property owner for the cost of the demolition. If the assessment is paid by January the 6th, there is no interest. If the property owner wants to work out a payment plan, they can contact the Revenue Division. Each property owner actually was sent a letter after the October 19th meeting that said there was a public hearing tonight and the billing options and arrangements that could be made.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders. Mayor Pro Tem, would that cover your items?
Yes, thank you.
And I would entertain a motion. Oh, excuse me, Councilor McIntosh.
Yeah, I want the public to understand that this is not a money-making source for the city. We're billing actual costs. And I know from several council members, those of us that are really concerned about affordable housing, this represents a loss to us in terms of naturally occurring affordable housing. And we, in the process of what the Community Development General Government Committee does is try to save properties from getting to this position where they have to be torn down. So this is kind of a sad day when we have to do this, but we've got to protect neighborhoods and protect people's properties. So,
thank you, Councilor McIntosh. Well said. Now I would entertain a motion.
Motion
Mayor,
approved.
move approval.
All right, Councilmember McIntosh moves approval, seconded by Councilmember Larson, I believe. Go to the roll call. Councilmember Larson.
I do have a discussion if I could.
Oh, I beg your pardon, Councilmember Larson. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I have one clarification that I'd like to get made. I've looked at this list. Demolition order was placed back in 2014, 2015, 2016, and we're just now billing out the demolition costs, and maybe somebody could explain a little bit about the sort of the length, the process which this is incurring.
Ms. Saunders?
I would ask that, I think Community Development Director is on the call, Marla Newman, or her deputy, Sharon Richardson. They can speak more to the process of after council orders the demolition, what happens next.
Ms. Newman, if you would comment on that, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor Joines, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the council, and council members-elect. Marla Newman, Community Development Director. So what we have is a period of time when we had a number of cases that were eligible for demolition. Council passed demolition ordinances. However, we did not have sufficient mechanisms in place as a department in order to actually do the demolitions at the time or contemporaneous with the demolition order. In many instances, there are minimum waiting periods before we actually go through the final process. Ordinarily, we have at least 90 days that expire between the time an ordinance is passed and we are able to start the process. If you all will recall, approximately 4 years ago, we learned that there was a significant backlog. And so some of these older cases from 14, 15, and the like were a part of a larger batch of over 600 properties that staff has been working diligently to reduce and whittle away. And so we've done a significant number of them. I would add, however, that many of those in that backlog were actually saved. So we will have still some of those older demolitions that come forward as we continue to work through them because of the passage of time. In many instances, we've had to track down heirs or property owners because they may have moved and make sure that we've gone through the proper process for giving notice and the like. So that leads to or contributes to some of the lag that we've had in being able to finally do the demolition after some number of years when council ordered or entered the demolition ordinance. And so now these cases are coming forward. And I will say that, again, you will continue to see some of the older cases for a while now, but we've made significant progress in clearing up that backlog. So over time, I would say that you'll see fewer and fewer cases that predate 2017, 2018.
Well, if I'm to interpret correctly what you just said, is that although the council approved the demolition of this property in April of 2014, the demolition of the building actually probably only occurred a few months ago.
Correct.
Is that right? So it took that long to somehow, one reason or another, to actually get the building down.
That is correct.
So this is not a delayed billing issue. This is a delayed demolition issue.
That is correct.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we'll go to the roll call. Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark? Councilmember Clark?
Yes, somebody muted me.
Councilmember Bessie?
Yes.
Councilmember Scipio?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams?
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor?
Yay.
Councilmember McIntosh?
Aye.
And Councilmember Parman?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Item G2.
Item G2, public comment period.
As I stated earlier, this is a time that the City Council sets aside 30 minutes to hear from citizens on matters of interest to them and on matters that are germane to city government. I'd ask that you state your name and address for the record when you're called on, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. First person signed up was Philip Carter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, distinguished council members, and Madam Mayor Pro Tem Adams. My comments today, first is relating to the CARES Act, whereby $1,375 would be allocated to help those with rent and utility and mortgage payments. And I know you've done this, I believe, in the past, but one of the problems has been that the citizens do not know who the organizations are that receive this money. And I would hope, as a member of Housing Justice Now, that some way or another you would make it publicly known, either on your website or in the newspaper or through the marketing department in which we have. Also, in light of the fact that several days ago we had an unfortunate incident between one of our police officers and our youth, I would ask this council, in moving forward, not accusing anyone and not exonerating anyone, but in collaboration with the ALCU and community members, not nonprofits, but community members, the police, and a member of the ALCU, to create some type of pamphlet that could be distributed in our recreation centers, given to churches, to whereby citizens would know their rights and the limitations of those rights, and who to contact after an encounter in which they feel was inappropriate. I believe that this would secure safety for our police officers and also for our citizens, and especially our youth. So I ask you to consider that. My last comment is, I'd like to thank you, Councilman Bessie, for voting no to C3, because I do think we need to put more money into providing affordable housing for the least among us. 8 or 6 apartments, and then they're being set aside for 15 years is not enough. It's just not enough. So thank you for your time, and I hope you consider all of my comments.
Thank you. Next speaker is Duck McManus. I think you're muted, Ms. McManus.
Just, okay, 2 things, and then I'm going to hang up so I can listen.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
We couldn't hear you, Ms. McManus, so please start your comments.
All right. My name is Duck McManus, and I live in the 27104 zip code. I'm speaking with Triad Abolition Project and in support of Hate Out of Winston and Housing Justice Now. City Council and city managers, the call to defund the police is a call to minimize the harm done by policing in our community of Winston-Salem. In the face of protests, emails, calls, and continued public comments from community members, the City Council speaks out to voice support for WSPD, a support that has resulted in decisions to add funds to WSPD. City Council members have even said that these additional funds are for retaining and recruiting more employees for WSPD. However, the harm from WSPD has never been addressed by the City Council. Mayor Allen Joins, you yourself have just asked the community to exercise patience with WSPD for an internal investigation on Officer Jones slamming a 15-year-old Black girl to the street just a week ago. This brutal use of force has been seen by thousands because a community member caught everything on video. The brutality did not end with the girl being slammed to the ground. She was pressed down while 2 officers held their knees to her back. She was yelled at, and the door was slammed on her when she was forced inside of a patrol vehicle. More importantly, she never should have been stopped by police when she was walking with her friends. City Council members, again, when we continue to say defund the police, we mean reduce the harm of the police in our community. You continue to want more officers, more community policing, more patrol, more surveillance, more task forces, and the list goes on. WSPD uses $63 million of their $78 million just on personnel, with 712 WSPD personnel out of a total of 2,420 25 city personnel, this means that almost a third of city personnel are WSPD officers. City council members, there are people among you who take money from the police union, and so we can understand why this would lead to a corruptly motivated support of WSPD in the public eye. But please take time to imagine and strategize with your community of 250,000 taxpayers how we can better use the general fund for community and not WSPD personnel. Furthermore, consider where the money that WSPD personnel receives goes. For example, Chief Thompson doesn't live full-time in Winston-Salem, so her salary from taxpayers is not being returned to the local community. City council members, I also ask that you use time within this meeting to respond to public comments. I yield my time.
Karen Obus.
Hello, my name is Karen Obas and I live in zip code 27012. I'm speaking with the Triad Abolition Project and in support of Hate Out of Winston and Housing Justice Now. City council members, the Winston-Salem Police Department employs 541 sworn officers and 171 civilians. Of those WSPD employees, 400 sworn officers and 3 civilians make up the patrol division. Of the 215,000 dispatch calls responded to by patrol officers in 2019, only 6% were for high crime. We at Triad Abolition Project would like for the City Council and city managers to consider employing mental health care workers as civilians in the patrol division. This would reduce the number of sworn officers responding to dispatch calls that require de-escalation and ensure safety is maintained without the use, threat, and intimidation of weapons. The 2 main objectives of WSPD include expand community policing and reduce crime and fear of crime. Members of City Council and city managers, the methods towards reducing crime and fear of crime is not an expansion of policing. Our community is in agreement that crime should be reduced, but in order to do so, we need to address the root causes of harm rather than perpetuating that harm with the use of policing, which clearly leads to more harm in our community. For example, when Officer Jones stopped the 5 teenagers on Hartford Street on the night of November 7th, he is seen threatening the concerned citizen recording the incident by ordering her to, quote, step away from my investigation before you go to jail too, end quote. Officer Jones is clearly in distress and then using his distress as a weapon to threaten community members in our city. What is also clearly demonstrated here is that not one of the surrounding WSPD officers intervened in a situation that escalated because of harmful actions taken by their colleague. On November 15th, Chief Katrina Thompson held a press conference in which she told community members not to yell at officers. When asked if there were any instances of this, she told community members there have been and proclaimed that citizens across the nation should, quote, not yell at officers, but instead should use internal review processes for filing complaints, end quote. City Council, can you please share with the public how many WSPD complaints resulted in disciplinary action in 2019 and so far in 2020? How long do these processes take on average? How many officers log paid hours towards this process? City Council, is it not clear that by using an internal review process that WSPD is being paid to address their own errors, which often results in continued distrust, disappointment, and continued fear and harm from our community?
Your time is up. Thank you so much. Miranda Jones.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Dear Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and the esteemed members of City Council, myself and my comrades from Hate Out in solidarity with several other activist groups have come before you all many times demanding reallocation of the $78 million excessive police budget. It appears that you are either unconcerned or are committed to ignoring us, the constituents. I am dismayed at your will to seemingly ignore us to get to more pressing agenda items as though the proletariat and the poor mean nothing to you. Please understand that we can't and we won't go away, just like the issue of excessive police force won't go away. Ironically, just last November 8th, there was an incident involving Black teenagers and a police officer. You made a statement, the chief of police made a statement, the ministers' conference made a statement. You've all asked the people to be patient, yet you've done nothing by way of preventative measures. See, racial and social justice requires money, just like the businesses downtown. So because our cause is good and noble and for the people, we will continue to ask for programs that provide opportunities for these young people. We ask that you find a way to reignite and fund Youth Build. You build a firefighter training center in the heart of Black Winston-Salem. We do thank Councilmember Taylor for bringing in WPR Consulting Group to do the climate assessment survey with the fire department and for them meeting with us, as an aside. However, we're still asking for more. We're asking that you commit yourself to provide opportunities so that these young Black people don't have negative police encounters. Maybe you would do differently if these were young white folks. One can only speculate. Maybe you would buy more than police vests and police cars. Today, the Honorable Mayor Pro Tem D.D. Adams said that the actions of the police officer last week was unacceptable. I don't care how you shape it, how you want to conversate it, how you want to construct it, how you want to put it on the platform, it's unacceptable. She said she's tired of us asking how did this happen. She stated that she believed that these incidents would not have been the same if they happened in Buena Vista. I wholeheartedly agree, but I ask you all to adhere to her words and invite us, the people, in to start the conversation about how to better use our money. Stop prioritizing officers over the people and yield the remainder of my time.
Rachel Fern.
Hello, yes, my name is Rachel, and I live in the 27105 zip code. I'm speaking with Triad Abolition Project in support of Hate Out of Winston and Housing Justice Now. City Council members, first of all, you have heard numerous public comments from concerned community members exercising the space of the public comments period as a time for being heard by you, but you have not given any responses in the past months. With this City Council meeting only having one agenda item besides the public comment period, I urge you to use the time of this meeting to respond to us. Your dismissive behavior towards community organizers and community members is a gross use of your power as officials elected by this community. Tomorrow, the City Council will have a special meeting that will review the Community Investments Committee recommendations, the budget forecast, and a report on the community agency funding process. The PowerPoint for this special meeting is now available on the city's website. It is clear that there will be no public comments during this meeting. The PowerPoint indicates a 1% increase in the pay to public safety in 2021 and a 2% increase in the pay to public safety in 2022. City Council and city managers, did you know that from 2019 to 2020, the police department budget increased by over 1%, while the overall city budget decreased by 1%? The share of general fund revenue spent on policing changed from 2019 to 2021 from 35 to 36%. Spending on police is a larger share of the total city budget in FY21 than it was in FY 2019, and we're on track to continue this trend. This should never be the trend in our city spending, and it should especially not be the trend during this pandemic. At the end of August, City Council held a special meeting to review the WSPD budget, but none of the information shared in this meeting demonstrated any level of scrutiny to the WSPD budget. However, the PowerPoint set for sharing the community agency funding process, as well as the long effort taken by the Community Investments Review Committee to recommend the use of $1 million for anti-poverty initiatives, it is very clear that the City Council spends more time scrutinizing funds that would help our community than they do for funds to pay city employees to police our community. Furthermore, members on the Community Investments Review Committee do not reflect the voices of the community that continue to ask the City Council and city managers to reallocate funds to the community. How can we move forward as a community that listens and responds to one another when the City Council continues to erase the voices of taxpayers demanding restorative justice and care? City Council members, please respond and please do more to address community concerns. I yield my time.
Samuel Schaefer.
My name is Sam, and I live in the 27106 zip code. I'm speaking with Triad Abolition Project and in support of Hate Out of Winston and Housing Justice Now. According to a recent poll conducted by Triad City Beat, the same readers who ranked Ardmore, Country Club, West Salem, and Buena Vista as best neighborhoods are the same readers who ranked Defund the Police as best political gaffe and the murder of a Black man as best story. To be clear, the call to defund the police or to reallocate funds is a call to reduce the harms of policing in our community. It will take time and research to do this, but we need for city council members to listen to community members who don't have stakes in nonprofits or organizations funded by the city. As we can see in the involvement with the Community Investments Committee, our city needs to actively address how systemic racism continues to lead to over-policing in Black neighborhoods and maintaining poverty, and then being too slow to address these issues that affect our community's basic needs. Furthermore, it has come to our attention that City Council member Annette Scipio has accepted money from the Southern States Police Benevolent Association, as did City Council member-elect Barbara Burke. In August of this year, Annette Scipio urged Council to increase support to WSPD, which resulted in City Council agreeing to a 1% increase in pay to public safety employees starting in 2021. That was a quick and swift decision without any request from Council or Mayor Joins to exercise patience. In June of this year, Council agreed to try to move $1 million towards anti-poverty initiatives, which required the creation of the Committee Investments Review Committee. The deadline for recommendations from this committee was set for October 1st, but this was quietly delayed to November. And according to the city's presentation set for November 17th, the recommendations for the $1 million towards anti-poverty initiatives will take even more time to disperse due to the decision to use a grant application process. And City Council, scrutinizing how funds are used for anti-poverty initiatives, are grossly prioritized to the point of exhausting our patience for any effort from our elected officials. In fact, by continuing to swiftly push support for taxpayer dollars towards WSPD employees, you are enacting white supremacy in our community. The harmful effects of policing can be corrected should you wish to listen to the community members as we present demands, research findings, and requests towards addressing harm in our community. For example, how can WSPD work towards lowering the average cost of dispatch call responses at $359 on average per dispatch? That's well above the North Carolina average of $282. And with over 215,000 dispatch calls a year, shouldn't WSPD be prioritizing a reduction in those dispatch calls in an effort to save money for the city's general fund? Why then is
your time is up.
Overall general fund decreases? City Council members.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Kirsty Final. Excuse me if I mispronounced your name.
Okay, it's Kirsty Fino. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Temp, and City Council members. My name is Kirsty Fino, and my address is 1834 Wake Forest Road. I'm here with Hate Out of Winston, and in solidarity with Housing Justice Now and Triad Abolition Project. I'm here to ask for the reallocation of the $78 million police budget to be redistributed back into community and social programs that prevent inequity rather than continuing to fund punitive responses that reinforce it. The WSPD does not need $78 million, the people do. I'm a social worker and I'm also in school to be a preacher, so I can't help but use parables to ask you to use your moral imagination with me tonight. A group of community members made up of social workers, community activists, trauma healers, and mental health care workers, and community elders are sitting on a riverbank just settling down for the evening when one of them sees a baby in the water. They immediately dive in, braving the fierce and regular current, and work tirelessly to rescue the baby. But as they climb ashore, one of the other community members spots another baby in the river in need of help, then another and another. Overwhelmed by the sheer number of babies, the community members grab any passerby that they can to help them. Before long, the river is filled with several babies, and more rescuers are required to assist the campers. Unfortunately, not all the babies can be saved. Tragically, some of the brave rescuers occasionally drown themselves while doing all that they can to keep the babies safe. At this point, one of the rescuers shifts course and starts walking upstream. "Where are you going?" the others ask. Exhausted in lament, "We need you here. Look how busy we are." The rescuer replies, "You carry on here. I'm gonna go upstream to find whoever it is that continues throwing all of these babies in the river." I wonder and I ask myself, what is our moral responsibility to realize when we have resources, $78 million of resources, infrastructure, and the power, positionality, and seat of influence to stop the precious babies, adults, and beloved humans from being put in the river? Imagine what it would look like for us to not just dump our dollars into the river, but to reimagine another world that is indeed possible, one that reallocates funds to shallow waters where babies can play, be nourished, imagine, and dream. I encourage us all to examine the role that we all play in the system that puts the labor on the underpaid and overworked community members that show up day in and day out to care deeply for their neighbors. Rather than overfunding police, we need protection of the community's most sacred and vulnerable. Rather than overfunded policing, we need political discourse to move from words into action. Rather than overfunded policing, we need to put people over profits. Rather than overfunding policing, we need reallocation of $78 million because another world is actually possible if you allow.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you so much. Valine Johnson.
Hi, this is Celine Johnson. I'm in zip code 27103. I am here with Hate Out of Winston in solidarity with Housing Justice Now and Triad Abolition Project, in agreement that the police don't need $78 million, the people do. For the past several city council meetings, nearly all of the citizens' public comments have asked this council to address the reallocation of a portion of the Winston-Salem Police Department budget to more preventative measures, yet this subject still hasn't made its way onto your agenda. I implore the City Council to use the remainder of tonight's meeting to discuss the reallocation of a portion of the police budget into social programs, such as reigniting Youth Build to support youth who've dropped out of school, providing the right crisis supports other than police intervention to people with disabilities, substance use disorders, and mental health diagnoses. Increasing funding to Soar, helping individuals reestablish themselves post-incarceration, and focusing on justice structures that are rooted in restoration rather than punishment. An omnibus training center, firefighting training center in the heart of Black Winston-Salem, making firefighting a career option for those who may not plan to attend college. Please assess the needs of our community with a genuine focus on equity. Please consider reallocating a portion of the Winston-Salem Police Department budget. Please invest in all of our city citizens, not in over-policing in Black and brown neighborhoods. And please respond to our public comments. I yield the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Annalise Sadler.
Good evening. My name is Annalise Sattler of 310 West 4th Street, 27101. I would like to address Mayor Pro Tem and City Council regarding the city's police budget. $78.5 million is excessive, and I urge you to shift the city's priorities from punitive retaliation to crime towards more preventative structures that support the most vulnerable members of our community. Some shifts that I would like to see occur include, perhaps in lieu of the fleet of chargers purchased by the police department, reallocating those funds towards an adequate public transportation system for our city. Our bus system is woefully behind the times and could use a little bit more accessibility, especially considering that access to transportation is one of the highest predictors of being able to escape homelessness. Speaking of homelessness and addressing the homeless crisis in our city, increasing the funding for Soar from $1 million to $5 million, which could easily be found in administrative and personnel costs in the police budget. I would also like to echo Hate Out of Winston and Omnibus in creating a training center, an omnibus training center for firefighters, to allow that to be a viable option for young Black men in our community, Black men and women, especially in lieu of the reports of racism coming from inside our firefighters that have been a prominent discussion piece in the activist community this year. Additionally, I would like to echo the need to reinstate Youth Build and other programs that address our youth. Speaking of youth as well, I would like to find at least $3 to $4 million to add to our public education system. I believe that you could actually find all of this funding directly from the police budget and many of these things are proven to stop crime at the source in preventative measures rather than addressing it punitively and violently later. Thank you. I yield my time.
Kinsey DeVincent.
Yes, Kinsey Davicente, and my address is 3401 Old Vineyard Road, Winston-Salem, North Carolina 27103. And I'm here this evening to stand in solidarity with Hate Out of Winston and ask that a reallocation of a portion of the $78 million from the police budget. Too much of this funding is used for purchasing police vests and new cars, none of which should be a priority when we know what causes crime. And as we continue to see in our nation, and unfortunately even in our city, interactions with police are violent and too often lead to death, particularly among Black people. So I would like to stand in solidarity with them and ask that a portion of this budget be used for preventative measures, such as reigniting youth build for youth who have dropped out of school. So this would prevent youth from turning to crime and then limit their engagement with police. Also, an omnibus training center that seats a firefighting training center in the heart of Black Winston-Salem so that we could have more Black firefighters. And this can be a viable career for those who don't plan to attend college. The same way that we train and recruit children to go into war, we should do the same for a career that actually has benefits. Also increasing funding for Soar, $1 million is nothing in comparison. So when you look at the amount that is in the whole budget, so we're asking that you at least start by allocating at least $5 million to this program. We also would like oversight and transparency to make sure the majority of this does not go to administrative costs. Also, in terms of transparency and oversight, more of this needs to be done in terms of the citizens police. I'm sorry, it's late and my daughter is playing beside me, so I apologize if I'm not using the correct term, but the Citizens Police Committee over but we would like more transparency and oversight with that. And excuse me. But we know that there's substantial funding for downtown businesses and programs with little to no measurable outcomes. So we would like to know why there is substantial funding for the very people who voted for you. WSPD doesn't need $78 million, the people do. Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you all very much for your comments tonight. That ends the public comment period. Council members, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Motion by Councilmember Parman, seconded by several council members. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? No. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, council members.